Scripture today comes from the book of Acts, chapter 21, starting in verse 17, 18 to 26. When we arrived at Jerusalem, the brothers received us warmly. The next day, Paul and the rest of us went to see James, and all the elders were present. Paul greeted them and reported in detail what God had done among the Gentiles through his ministry. When they heard this, they praised God. They said to Paul, "You see, brother, how many thousands of Jews have believed, and all of them are zealous for the law. They have been informed that you teach all the Jews who live among the Gentiles to turn away from Moses, telling them not to circumcise their children or live according to our customs. What shall we do? They will certainly hear that you have come, so do what we tell you. There are 4 men with us who have made a vow. Take these men, join in their purification rites, and pay their expenses so that they can have their heads shaved. Then everybody will know there is no truth in these reports about you, but that you yourself are living in obedience to the law. As for the Gentile believers, we have written to them our decision that they should abstain from food sacrificed to idols, from blood, from the meat of strangled animals, and from sexual immorality." The next day Paul took the men and purified himself along with them. Then he went to the temple to give notice of the date when the days of purification would end, and the offering would be made for each of them. May God add his blessing reading from Acts here today. Was Paul a hypocrite? We're going to see in today's talk many things that contradict each other in Paul's way of life. And yes, this is number 7 of 9, so there's only 2 more Paul sermons. So if you're getting tired of Paul, there's just a couple. But was Paul a hypocrite? Well, let's look at what a hypocrite is. A practice of claiming to have moral standards or belief to which one's own behavior does not conform. Have you ever met a hypocrite? Have you ever been in church with a hypocrite? Have you ever looked in the mirror at a hypocrite? Yet Jesus thought hypocrites were some of the worst of all of them. He condemned hypocrites all the time, because he would say, "What? You Pharisees, you hypocrites." He didn't like somebody that was not true to what they were. I think our population has hypocrites at all ages. I think even young people don't like it when their friends act one way in front of parents and a different way away from their parents. You all may have known that, or even raised children where Eddie Haskell comes to mind. Remember him? Hello, Mrs. Cleveland. Always try to get the D's in trouble. We use the word integrity because integrity is somebody that acts the same no matter where they are. They're true to their principles, they're true to their faith, they're true to what they believe in. They act the same way, whether they're in front of people to impress, or normal people, or in their daily life, they act the same. They have integrity. And I think all of us, even though we would admit we've all committed some hypocrisy in our lives, would denounce it and say we don't want to be that way. We don't want to be fake. This is that way to hypocrite really. Well, understanding all of that, American culture seems to have a bit of a fascination with religious hypocrites. I mean, we have hypocrites that are political hypocrites. Right? Are there a few of those out there? A few of those. Yeah. We have hypocrites that are just in our daily life. But it seems that we have this fascination with religious hypocrites. The minister that talks negative, talks about how sexual immorality is terrible, and then you read in the paper where he's had an affair with somebody in his congregation. Or the minister that stands up and says, if you would just sow a seed of faith so we can expand this ministry, you find out he's embezzling funds from the church. Those get some notoriety. In fact, we almost feast on them. When I was in seminary, there were 2 pastors in Orlando, big church. I think it was like 8,000 or 9,000 people. And the 2 lead pastors were actually covering for each other as they were having affairs. Amazing. But we feast on that hypocrisy. So it's with that sense of our sense of hypocrisy that we don't like that we look at Paul and find out, was he really? There's a ministry out there called Wings of Healing, and the leader of that is a woman, and she said, no Christian generally seeking the righteousness of God should imitate a man like Paul. Pretty strong words. So let's see why she had these in common. And Jesus warned about the Pharisees. He warned us about the Pharisees. Beware of the Pharisees. They pretend to be what they are not. Yet, Paul said what? I am a Pharisee of Pharisees, when he's describing himself. And even if hypocrisy was hidden, it's not hidden anymore, because we've read Paul's letters for hundreds of years. Scholars have taken them apart, have looked at them, studied them. So many times we find that Paul says one thing and then does the opposite. And so how do we balance that? How do we understand this man of the New Testament that wrote half of the New Testament, that done all these wonderful things? How do we balance that? Some call Paul a congenital liar and mean-spirited. Well, that's strong also. So let's look at Paul. Let's look at some of his accusations, some of the inconsistencies in Paul's life. One was dealing with brothers and sisters caught in sin. Paul tells the Galatians, restore the brother or sister gently. To the Corinthians, he says, expel the wicked person from among you. Which is it? Out or in? Gently or quickly? Law or grace? There's an inconsistency with food that is sacrificed to idols. Paul tells one congregation to avoid meat, and to another, well, just don't worry about it. How do we balance that? He tells the church of Corinth, but not everyone possesses this knowledge. Some people are still so accustomed to idols that when they eat sacrificial food, they think of it as having been sacrificed to a god. And since their conscience is weak, it is defiled. But food does not bring us near to God. We're no worse if we do not eat, and no better if we do. Did you walk out of there understanding what he meant? No. So, a lot of times Paul suggests it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what we eat. It doesn't matter whether it was sacrificed or not. But to others, it matters greatly. And so he's on both sides of the street when you can actually walk there. So there's 4 examples we're going to look at. One of them is in 1 Corinthians 6:1. You're following on. Paul tells believers they should not appeal to secular courts. But in Acts 25:11, Paul appeals to the highest secular court on the planet, Caesar himself. Second one is Paul's inconsistent attitude about monetaries, where Paul refuses pay for the gospel in 1 Corinthians 9, and then is assertive about it. If others have the right of support from you, shouldn't we have it all the more? But we did not use the right. On the contrary, we put up with anything rather than hinder the gospel of Christ. His argument is he doesn't need money, but rather accepting pay would be a hindrance to the gospel. And so he doesn't take money for it. In fact, he even brags about not taking money. He does to the Thessalonians. Surely you remember, brothers and sisters, our toil and hardship. We worked day and night in order to be a burden, in order to not be a burden to anyone, while we preach the gospel of God to you. You are witness, and so is God, of how holy and righteous and blameless we were among the believing. But for you know that we dealt with each of you as a father deals with his own children. You don't get paid to be a parent. Paul lists his reasons for not accepting money. That he was holy, righteous, and blameless, and humble. But, great, you don't accept money from the Philippians, right? No, that's who he does accept money from. He doesn't accept from the Corinthians, but he does from the Philippians. So when the Philippians decide to help him financially, he accepts it. And he doesn't apologize for accepting those gifts. Paul, which is it? Do we accept money or not? So maybe more difficult to understand than food and money is that he preached that converts did not need to be circumcised. Every time Paul wrote about circumcision, the message was the same. Interesting though, when he got with his ministry partner Timothy, what did he have Timothy do? He had to be circumcised. I'm sure Timothy really appreciated that. Paul is telling different stories about the same gospel. Cultural adaptation sounds like a little bit like an endorsement of hypocrisy, because Paul says this. This is his line. To the Jews, I became like a Jew. To win the Jews. To those under the law, I became like one under the law. Though I myself am not under the law, so as to win those under the law. To those not having the law, I became like one not having law, even though I am free from God's law, but am under Christ's law, so as to win those not having the law. I think they call that animal a chameleon. He is who he needs to be with who he's in front of. That's who Paul seems to be. So would we call that the epitome of hypocrisy? Is that this man we revere, that we've looked at for almost 7 weeks now? Well, the meat sacrificed to idols is a tough. And I have information on it. And I've been reading over it. And it's a struggle. It's talked about from Exodus to Revelation, whether we should eat meat that is sacrificed to pagan gods. And throughout the Bible, it's not supposed to be done. Many of us seem to use alcohol as a substitute for meat today in the way this is looked at. In other words, some argue that if you are drinking and you cause a brother or sister to stumble by drinking, even if doing it correctly, meaning handling, it is better to be a teetotaler. Now, the Methodist Church was that prior to 1968. In fact, Reverend Jackson had to sign a form saying he would not use tobacco products or alcohol. After 68, preachers didn't have to sign that. I remember a friend of mine, older pastor friend of mine, found out about this like in 1988. He said, "You mean I could have drinking beer the whole time? I thought I was still under that." But in Corinth, for example, meat wasn't the problem. Meat was available. If a Jew wanted a chicken, they would go and buy a chicken and they would butcher it up. But if they wanted beef, you can't go in the market and buy a cow. What are you going to do with 500 pounds of meat? So the cow could go to the temple. And really the priests were butchers. And they would cut the meat up. Some of it would be used for sacrifice, some would be sold, and some of it they kept to feed themselves. And so they had this meat that then was sacrificed. Now some of the pagans would use that meat to sacrifice to their gods. And then would go back in the marketplace. And so the question was, should we Christians buy that meat? It reminds me, my dad used to shoot a lot of deer in Pennsylvania. He had a friend of his, butcher, that would make the deal. Either he would pay him to butcher it, or he'd keep some of the meat. That's how the priests acted. They would butcher all this meat, they'd keep some of it, and they would sacrifice some of it. I'm talking about pagan priests. So did the average person know if they were eating meat that had been sacrificed or not? And did they even care? Most didn't care. Most, for sure, important. But Paul cared, and so the question was, if you knew it was sacrificed, stay away from it. But you don't want to go hungry. And if there is meat available, it really won't matter. How do we deal with that? In Sardis, they actually passed a law that meat market officials had to keep meat separate. There was meat for the Jews, they could eat, that had not been sacrificed. And then meat that had been sacrificed that others were used. Well, it's confusing, and maybe that's why the vegetarians were prominent, because if you didn't eat any meat, you didn't have to worry. Paul told the Corinthians, buy meat and eat it. Eat anything sold in the meat market without raising questions of conscience. For the earth is the Lord's, everything in it. Well, that kind of covers it. That kind of made me feel good about having that steak. Probably did to the people in Corinth. So the situation on meat is complicated. And Paul speaks more in Corinthians chapter 8, but not everyone possesses this knowledge. Some people are still so accustomed to idols that when they eat sacrificial food, they think of it as having been sacrificed to a god. And since their conscience is weak, it's defiled. The food does not bring us near to God. We are no worse if we do not eat, and no better if we do. Be careful, however, that the exercise of your rights does not become a stumbling block to the weak. For if someone with a weak conscience sees you with all your knowledge eating in an idol's temple, won't that person be emboldened to eat what is sacrificed? So how I would understand that is, don't do something that's going to cause somebody else to fall. Isn't it true, if we cause a child to fall, we are creating a terrorist? And so we need to be careful of what we do and how we do it and where we do it. Circumcision is one that Paul talked about a lot. We encounter this in Acts 15. Of course, all Jews were to be circumcised. And so the question was, Paul and Barnabas disagreed with this among the Gentiles. They thought that because of what Jesus had done, no longer was circumcision needed. And so they had to go back to Jerusalem to talk to the elders and the disciples. And they did. So there was joy in the house when they came back to find out that the Gentiles had been accepting the faith. So Paul and Barnabas and even Peter testified to their experience of Gentiles receiving the faith and receiving the Holy Spirit. And so the thought is that the best counsel that came out of that was that the Gentiles did not have to be circumcised. And Paul and Barnabas supported that. Paul had a passionate argument and presentation, telling about the leadership that he did with the Gentiles. And he says, or Peter says, no. We believe it's through the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ that we were saved just as they are. No circumcision. And we know that Paul's position was that same position until he met Timothy. And here is where we get the description of if your mother is Jewish, then you are a Jew. Because what happened was Timothy's mother was Jewish and his father was Greek. And so Paul says because he is going to go into a heavily Jewish area to do his ministry, and he has a Jewish mother, he needs to be circumcised. And so that traveling, going to that place, Paul then has Timothy circumcised because he believes it will be better for his ministry among predominantly Jewish, even though there's Gentiles in the area too. And that's where we get this, if your mother is Jewish, you are a Jew. And of course, we don't see this as a big discussion today, Jews and Gentiles, Jews and everybody else. But in this day, it was huge. In Galatians 2, it says, as for those who were held in high esteem, whatever they were makes no difference. God does not show favoritism. They added nothing to my message. On the contrary, they recognized that I had been entrusted with the task of preaching the gospel to the uncircumcised, just as Peter had been to the circumcised. For God, who was at work in Peter as an apostle to the circumcised, was also at work in me as an apostle to the Gentiles, or the uncircumcised. James, Cephas, and John, those esteemed pillars, gave me and Barnabas the right hand of fellowship when they recognized the grace given to us. They agreed that we should go to the Gentiles, and they added them to the circumcised. And they asked, what was that? We should continue to remember the poor, the very thing I have been eager to do all along. So, Paul is professing this. He doesn't ask anybody to be circumcised except Timothy. And maybe even the Greeks, like in Titus's case, the Greek fathers didn't want their sons to be circumcised. They held them back from that. So Paul doesn't fight that. So I don't know that that would be called hypocrisy, except leaning to the mores of the day. Well, we know you can't be half Jewish, and so that's how they picked the mother for Timothy. Well, let's sum this up. The being all things to all people, is that the height of hypocrisy? To the Jews I become Jew, and to those under the law I become under the law, to those with no law I act like I have no law. Well, if we look at those statements, that's the statement that we would read in the Bible. And then there's more of another translation I pulled up. Let's look at this one. When around Jews, I emphasize my Jewishness in order to win them over. When around those who live strictly under the law, I live by its regulations, even though I have different perspective on the law. Now, in order to win them over. In the same way, I've made a life outside the law to gather those who live outside the law, although I personally abide by and live under the anointed one's law. That's what I think Paul is trying to say, and I think that, for me, that was a little easier to understand, even though they're fairly different in translation. What he means is to the Jews, he was a Jew, and to the Gentiles, a Gentile. Paul observed the Sabbath when he was with the Jews. But when he was with those who didn't observe the Sabbath, he didn't observe the Sabbath either. Even though it seems hypocritical, it's not what Paul meant for us to believe. What he's talking about is not behavior as much as what's called rhetorical adaptability. And so his method, he used that to argue for the faith. He used that rhetorical adaptability. And so he argued with the Gentiles like a Gentile, like a Jew with the Jews. And to win philosophers, he acted like a philosopher. So how do you present the gospel? Paul's answer, it depends on the audience. Isn't it true that we speak differently when we're in front of different groups of people? In fact, we're told in our classes on speech and debate to know your audience. Know who you're speaking to. Paul was good at that. So Paul's not a hypocrite. Maybe he's a brilliant master of his audience, one that we can take great understanding from today. To know how to meet and engage people where they are when we witness to them. So communication would be enhanced, and maybe we would get past first base and second base and third base and win them to Christ, because we're speaking to them where they are and not where we are. Almighty and loving God, we thank you for Paul. We thank you for his writings. We thank you for people that have called him into question, that we can study him and understand him greatly. And even though he does look at things differently, he's not hypocrite. Paul was the greatest at winning people to Christ. Oh, if we could just be touched by a little of what Paul had to win people to Christ. Wouldn't that be a beautiful thing to come back each week knowing we had shared our witness with somebody who was contemplating giving their life to Christ, going from darkness to light, coming from a place of not understanding to a place of understanding, all because we understood where they were and we talked to them where they were. In Jesus' name, amen. Our final hymn, number 593.